Hey guys, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Hardcore HD. What's up, Miko?
Hi, Celestina. Were you just struggling to remember which podcast you're on right now?
Maybe a little bit, but in my defense, it's almost 11 p.m. my time, so please forgive.
Fair enough. Totally get it.
Cool. So today we are talking about I guess it's kind of a buzzwordy topic, but it's still so relevant. So burnout. You've probably heard of it since maybe pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, not having the separation of your job from your home because you work from home or your job just running you ragged, right? Burnout, I think, is so pervasive throughout our society, and there are definitely different ways to experience it depending on your design, and then also different ways to minimize it and recover from it based on your design. So we're kind of going to be going through that over the course of the next couple of weeks, but breaking it up with some different episodes in between. We'll make sure that we have the episodes labeled specifically so you guys can follow along with this series if that's of interest to you. If you want to help other people in your family or your world, or if you are one of these types, probably will be, because we all fall into one of the five. But yeah, so if you want to follow along, we'll be sure to mark those. But today we're starting with generators and just talking about burnout for generators, what each of those feels like in 3 different spaces. I think, Miko, you said spiritual, physical, and psychological. Is that correct?
And energetically.
And energetic. Of course, energetically, boo. Of course. So yeah, we'll be exploring those 4 aspects of it and giving you some real life examples along the way. All right, girly, take us off. Kick it off. Kick, do the things.
It's 11 p.m. Thank you for the intro. That was very good. I think everyone understands what we're going to be talking about. And it is a topic that has become such a big thing, especially during and after Corona, in my opinion. Burnout, anxiety, depression, those have skyrocketed. I don't have the exact statistics, but I do know that the numbers have risen. And I always think about the pandemic, the time that we were locked into our homes, was often a choice that you had to make. So of course there are also individuals who didn't have these choices because of very challenging relationship dynamics, for example, within the household, and that's a whole different story. But I mean that if you have a safe home environment, you had the choice to either go into your vices or you had the choice to improve aspects of yourself. So you could really go into self-reflection and growth practices and improve yourself on that level and go inwards more, because that gave you the chance to do that. Or you started to continue drinking more, for example, or binge watching series, or just trying to distract yourself, or playing video games or things like that, but to a larger amount even than before. So these were kind of the 2 choices you had. And still, I feel as well that a lot of people, when they went into lockdown, they also had the challenge of work and family, the combination of both. So that can also put additional stressors on you, especially if you have kids running around and they needing to be entertained during this whole situation. But yeah, the main focus we're going to set today is really looking at the generator energy. So if you're a generator, you have your sacral defined, and you have this life source, this everlasting life force energy. And this comes from your sacral energy. It is something that can last for a very long time. It's not really something that only lasts for a few hours. So depending on which motor is defined within your chart, and we have the sacral, which is the sacral energy. We have the root, which is your root energy. So that's 2 of the motors. Then we have the emotional solar plexus, which is emotional energy. And then we have the ego, which is the heart energy, or also, yes, it is in part an ego energy in a healthy way. So there's an unhealthy ego, and then there's also a healthy ego. So these are the four motors within you. And as a generator, you could have all four of them defined. So you could have all of that energy inside of you. And if you do have all of those four motors defined, you are an extremely energized being. So if you still feel burnt out at that point, you can be sure that something is off within you. Would you like to share a little bit of how that can express itself? Do you have maybe a real life example of someone who has suffered from a burnout, but they have so much energy within them?
I'm going back through clients. Just give me a sec. I don't know of someone whose chart is that illuminated, if you will, but I've had clients in the past. So I don't know if I've actually mentioned it on here, but I work with dietitians, or I have worked with dietitians and exploring their human design and related to their businesses. So with past clients, I've found that there was always such an intense drive to do. And it wasn't necessarily a physical drive. It was like, I have to do this because something inside of me is telling me to do it, even if they're hitting a wall, right? Like they wanted to basically drive through, metaphorically, drive through the wall in front of them rather than be patient, right? Even though they were burnt out, even though they kept going, doing, and they weren't getting the results that they wanted. So yeah, unfortunately, I have seen that a lot. And I don't think people recognize that it's burnout, though. I think people recognize that as the typical, at least in the examples I'm sharing, I think they recognize that as quote unquote what an entrepreneur should be doing versus because that's the rhetoric we're given, right? Like go, do. You're an overnight success 20 years down the road. And I think that that's the rhetoric that we're fed. And then that's what people experience, but then again, probably don't recognize as burnout. They think that that's just the way things should be.
Yeah, that's a very good point, that a lot of our society is trimmed to do. And we also have a lot of motivational speakers actually that are pushing into that direction. And 70% of the population is either a generator or a manifesting generator. But still, even these sacral beings need to take rest sometimes. They are not all about just do all the time. They also need rest. And if they are not learning how to release that energy in the first place, so there are several different points here that we're going to talk about. One of them is that as a sacral being, you really need to learn how to release your energy in a healthy way. And you need to physically get moving. That is for sure for a sacral being. You really need to physically release that energy. Your physical body needs to get moving to release that energy. If you're a manifesting generator, you don't only need to exhaust yourself physically, and I mean exhaustion in a healthy way, not in a, I'm going to go to the gym for 5 hours, but instead really you just feel exhausted after a workout in a good way. So this is what generators need to do. If you're a manifesting generator, you also need to exhaust yourself physically, but you also need to exhaust your mind. So you really need to get your neurons all fired up and be passionate about what it is you're doing. So this is going to be the next part. So first, we're sticking to the physical part. But if you would like to jump onto the next part, feel free.
You got me. Okay, so I recalled a client who was burnt out in so many different ways, but also lost the connection to being physically active because of burnout and work, in dissatisfaction with work. We'll get to that in a second. But because of that, didn't have capacity to be able to physically do anymore. And this was like an athlete who did like soccer, track, like long distance cycling, snowboarding, like loved all the things and lost all of those things. And even yoga, like lost a yoga practice because there was just no desire to do, and the burnout was so deep. So if I recall, I believe she just started with like walking, and that was to release some of the anxiety, and that helped significantly. I'm pretty sure she said she literally just like walked a lap around her house, and she could like see where she like walked in the dirt around her house. But if that was just one small step to becoming active, to just getting your mind off of the other stressors, that was a huge step, right? And now she's active in so many more different ways because of that.
Yeah, this is actually a really good point that you're bringing this up, because a lot of people are struggling with understanding where to get started, or how to get started, or how to even get back into a routine once you've established one, and then because of life circumstances you're losing it for some reason. And it's important to not tell yourself that you need to do this and that you keep your expectations to yourself minimal, but also realistic. It needs to be realistic for the point in time that you're in right now, for the life situation that you're in right now. Just set yourself small goals that you can for sure achieve. So if it's, for example, you want to get back into your yoga practice, set yourself the goal of being on your mat for 5 minutes a day. If you have completely lost it and you feel like you don't have any time for anything, just start small. Start with 5 minutes. Start with taking a lap around your house. That's something that I recommend my clients a lot when they tell me they don't have time. Then for me, this is a great start. Walking is very, very good, especially when you have the chance to walk in nature. Then you also get the energetic cleansing from the trees around you. If you have trees around you, then that's super healthy and helpful. So you're releasing the energy by making your body move, and that is not just from a human design aspect, but also if you just look at it from a physiological aspect. Moving your muscles is moving your lymphatic system, because that is the only way that your lymph, so the lymphatic fluid, that the lymph is flowing through your body. It doesn't have a pump like the heart. So it doesn't pump like the blood circulation. The lymphatic system needs the muscles to move, and they are the pump that helps those fluids move through your body. And this is the place where all the junk is collected, because this is everything that is being pulled out and pushed out into the interstitial. I don't know how to say that in English because I studied this in German.
Say it in German.
Intracellular.
Intercellular.
Yeah, it's basically being pushed out. Very good. It's basically being pushed out of the blood, the veins and the arteries. And it's being pulled out into the places in between the cells. And then it's being recycled. And whatever the body still needs, it's being pulled back in. And whatever the body doesn't need, it remains in the lymph. And this fluid needs to be still moved so that it doesn't get stuck and stagnate. So I think this was just a little bit of an explanation for everyone that is still very in their heads. Because it makes medical sense as well, not just energetically.
You're welcome for the biology lesson. Thanks, Miko.
You're welcome. So yeah, this is the first part. You really need to release that energy, even if you feel like you don't have any energy left. Because if you are a generator, you have that energy inside of you. And I've heard that so many times, that generators come to me and they say, I don't have energy. I can't get up. I don't want to go to work, or they feel tired, or literal, like they have reached the point of being burnt out, not literally burnt out, but you know what I mean. So they've reached that point and they just don't have access to their sacral energy. And that comes from several different points. One of them is that they can't even feel their bodies anymore. So this is also a very important part that we need to mention here, that generators first and foremost need to even get to know and understand their sacral. What is their sacral response? How do I feel my sacral response? Because if you're not able to feel that, you're not going to be able to define what is something that you're passionate about and what is something that you're not passionate about. Please elaborate.
I always start with a as like the most basic way for a burnt out or a generator who is not in touch with their body to start. My question is always, do you want pizza? And they can either say right? Like yes or no. And I always say, like, don't respond with words, respond with grunts. And that's like, I feel like the most visceral way to be able to connect to the gut, which is the decision-making center, which is going to help you respond to things that are for you or are not for you. If you're responding to things that are not for you, you're not going to feel satisfied. And then that is going to more quickly lead you down a path of burnout, or it's going to more quickly lead you to a series of things that are not for you. And then you're going to be living a life that is not for you, right? But the more you can tap into the side of things, or the side of things when something is or is not for you, that's going to help you in your decision-making process. And I think the scary part is, right, like trusting your gut. Even though I don't know what that feels like. I've never had a gut feeling like that, so I don't know what that feels like. But people say trust your gut, so do it, guys. If you have a sacral authority, or if you are a generator type, trust your gut. Let me put that caveat in. But if you can tune into your body, it's not going to lead you astray. I can tell you that when I've experienced a heart pull, it's always the right choice, right? And maybe sometimes it's the right choice because you have to learn something, but 90% of the time it's the right choice because it feels like the right choice for your body. So the more you can listen to your body and just start with the Actually, if you ever spend time around like a generator kid, and you ask them to use their words, so interesting. My bestie's daughter I think she's an emotional MG. She's a 5-1 emotional MG. So like, talk about exploring the 5-1s. If you guys have listened to previous episodes, I love learning about a 5 just because I don't get it. But like exploring with her daughter, I'm like, use your words, boo-boo kitten. And she's like, I'm like, oh, duh, dude, totally. That's why she's not using her words. She's just feeling into her body and like what is for her in the moment and what isn't for her in the moment. So take a lesson from the tiny humans of the world. Listen to your body, feel into your body, and do your best to start with simple questions like, would you like pizza? Yes or no? And having someone ask you yes or no questions in your day-to-day can be really helpful with that. Or ask yourself yes or no questions rather than open-ended. So give that a whirl. Let us know how you go.
So true. Yes. Listening to what kids have to say or how they navigate the world, especially before the age of approximately 7. When they're still relatively pure, relatively, depending on if you let them be who they are here to be. That's the trick that we often forget to do. We forget to not impose ourselves onto the kids and be more of guides instead of teachers. But it's what I also want to point out for everyone that is struggling with that at the moment is, if you haven't done that yet, try out a guided meditation where you're guided through body scanning. This is one of the major ways for you to start reconnecting with your body. This goes for every single type out there. For everyone that doesn't feel connected to their body, for everyone that doesn't understand where their intuition is coming from or how to interpret it, doing body scan meditations is incredibly helpful because they teach you to really experience your body in a whole different way again. Of course, I'm always also a very big fan of yoga because it's already working on all of the areas that define you. The body, psychological aspect, energy, and spiritual aspects are all combined in yoga. So if you can, put a little yoga practice in front of your body scan meditation, and yeah, you will get closer and closer to understanding how your intuition is speaking to you. So that is just one little extra tip for you on how to connect more deeply with your intuitive side, your sacral intuition. If you would like to step more into the psychological aspect, so we've covered the physical, we've covered the energy aspect, and I think the psychological aspect is a huge thing when it comes to burnout. So it also goes back to making the right decisions for you. Because if you're not making the right decisions for you, you're going to end up being frustrated. That is the not self feeling that a generator will have if they're doing things that they're not satisfied with. So if they haven't listened to their sacral energy. And a lot of times this burnout comes because you're stuck in a job. You feel like you can't get out of it. So really understanding when the job isn't right for you, or the partnership isn't right for you, or the place you're living in isn't right for you, it's key for you to also regain your energy, following things that make you feel satisfied. So important. Would you like to add something to that?
I would love to add something to this. So one of my clients was working in a hospital setting that was just dragging her down, like 40-hour a week, just not happy in the environment. And it wasn't necessarily because of the people, but it was the work. It was I didn't expect to be here this long, like all of those things kind of just coming up. And there are other aspects of her chart that lead into this, but not feeling like she could leave because of the lack of preparedness, right? 4-line FYI, guys. But like not having anything back up, right? As a potential monetary source. And that can be scary. So I think the biggest thing is, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And that's something that you have to learn how to trust. And yes, it's scary. But if you're making decisions in alignment, I'm a firm believer that the universe will provide, right? If you are making decisions that feel really friggin' good to you, there may be some not great months, and you may be eating some ramen for a hot minute. But if you then have the time to like do this reset of your body, go back into your body, there will be more abundance on the other side. So just give that a noodle, because the client that I'm thinking of took the scary leap, still works like half time at the hospital, but doesn't have to be there as frequently, which so much better for this person's mental health, this person's just like decision-making ability, and burnout, right? Like mitigating burnout. But then now she also has the capacity to do so much more and work on projects that really light her up. And that has skyrocketed in the last couple of months. So just, if you can trust in yourself, it will happen. And yeah, that's scary. It's super scary to do that. So do it if you have the capacity to. And I understand that comes with privilege as well. So do what you can with what you can. But if you have the capacity to make big life moves, if you're not happy, Dude, lean into it.
So true. And you said some words that I think are key here, the light you up part. Because whenever any one of us are really following our inner intuition, and that always comes along with a positive energy. So for generators, it's feeling satisfied. For reflectors, it's feeling this curious joy kind of thing, this curiosity, joy, childish like happiness. For projectors, it is feeling successful. So this is just a few examples of all of those feelings are positive when you're following the correct inner intuition for you. And that, of course, creates a whole different level of how you show up in the world. So when you're starting to follow these happy feelings, these happy hormone producing feelings, then you're also going to radiate that from within. And people are automatically, if you're a generator, for example, you're going to receive opportunities to respond to. You're going to have things to respond to because people are going to see you, they're going to come up to you, they're going to maybe offer you a job or offer you a new place to live, and things that you cannot imagine are going to happen if you really learn to put yourself first in a lot of ways, as in that you learn to take care of yourself, body, mind and soul, body, energy, mind and soul. When you do that, things are going to change. Because when your inner self changes and starts to shine, you're also going to do that from the outside, and people are going to see it. People are going to notice it. So for everyone that doesn't believe in auras, this is the best way for me to describe it, because if you walk around with a smile on your face, people are going to smile back at you. It's just a natural thing that happens. And if they don't, who cares? Because you're happy inside, so it doesn't really bother you anyways. So this is the kind of just follow your satisfaction for generators.
I just thought of another client, literally same thing. Didn't like the work environment, got out of the work environment, and then had massive opportunities come up after that. So if you really feel like your work environment is the root of your burnout, and you can make that change and maybe give yourself a little bit of a buffer in between positions, man, I can tell you that I've seen it happen multiple times, and that's been the game changer for people. So if you feel like your workspace is leading to your burnout, do yourself a favor and make that change. Again, if you have the scope and ability to be able to do so.
Totally agree. And this also kind of leads us to the next point of spirituality. So when I personally talk about spirituality, I'm completely separating it from religion. For me, these two things are not at all connected. But instead, I am someone that does believe in a higher power. I believe you can call it source, you can call it universe, you can call it whatever you want. You can also call it any kind of God's name that you choose. But to me, there is a higher power, and that guides you through life. And there, in my opinion, there's always a reason why you meet someone, why things happen to you, whether we define them as good or bad. Whatever happens in your life, there's always a reason. So trusting in this, even if it doesn't exist, it still helps you to navigate life more easily, because you're going to explain things in a way that helps your entire rest of your being handle these situations in a very different way. And that just reduces challenges in life. For me, it's just it's magical when it's not that I give up or I release the ability to respond, or the responsibility. I don't release that. I don't say, okay, it's not in my hands, whatever happens, happens. But instead, I'm okay with whatever happens, and I take charge in the situation when something happens. And I think feeling this connection, being connected in this way, is immensely helpful to also release this pressure that you may be putting on yourself when you're facing a burnout, because it's not all just in your hands. There's some things that you can navigate, but it's not all in your hands. And I feel, to me, this just releases a lot of pressure that I would put on myself.
There's always a lesson to learn from a situation, right? Like, be real with you guys. I don't love living in Australia, right? But I think that there's something that I need to learn while I'm here, right? So making the best out of that, knowing that there's a greater plan in all of it, right? A greater lesson. And maybe that's something that in your world you can take back, learn a lesson from, or maybe it's something that you can share with someone else, right? So yes, I think having the faith and having the understanding and maybe reasoning, explanation, I'm just saying a lot of words, not really in a sentence, but having all of that, thanks, having the reasoning, explanation, just something to, I think, just formulate a thought around, okay, this is happening because of this potentially, versus just like, it's happening to me. That feels victim mentality-y, but really, like, you are the driver in the driver's seat of your life, right? Like, you can still make decisions, and maybe sometimes things happen to you, but it really is what you make of them, right? So consider that in what you're doing as well. There's always a lesson to be learned and some growth potential that can happen from whatever you're experiencing as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. The tip that I would have for everyone who would like to connect more with the spiritual aspects in life, there are plenty of them. But one of them, if you are still someone that is at the beginning of this journey, maybe try, instead of going straight into meditation, try mindfulness. So this is still, it's not entirely connected to the spiritual aspects. That would be mindfulness, in my opinion. That would be meditation, in my opinion. Mindfulness, on the other hand, is more still in between the mind energy and spiritual layers, because there is a way to be mindful and to go into the heart area and to kind of make it into a meditation in some way. But mindfulness per se is usually known as something that you can do at any point in time, even right now while you're listening to this episode. If you listen to the words that we're saying, you can hear the different sounds around you. Maybe you can hear the different intonations in our voices. So really honing in on your 5 senses. If you have 5 available, if you have less than 5, just focus on the ones that you can focus on. But even if you're blind, for example, you can still use the sight in some ways. So there have been many studies which show that blind individuals are still able to see in some ways. And I believe this is due to the third eye. I'm a very strong believer that people have the ability to even see beyond what the eyes can see. And I'm not just saying that in a way where you're meeting someone and the appearance is not the thing that really that it's all about, that you see beyond the appearance. But I'm saying that even if you are blind, for example, I still have the belief that you see a lot more than people that have eyes that can see in some ways. So just hone in on the senses that you have. Try to focus on each of them one by one, and then kind of merge them together at the end. And while you're doing that, the reason why this is a bit of a meditation is because it's about releasing all other thoughts that come to your mind. It's about being in the present moment right now, without thinking about the past, without thinking about the future, just being here right now in the present moment and doing it without judgment. So not thinking about, wow, this is great, or this is bad, or this is that, or this is that, but really just stepping into the observer. And if you've listened to me talk before, mindfulness to me is one of the biggest keys in life, because that helps you to listen to your intuition, to hear your body's way of speaking to you, because there will also be physical reactions in your body, either goosebumps or just something happening in your stomach area or in your heart area, depending on which inner authority you have. But all of that, when you're using mindfulness, you're going to be able to hone in on these things far better than if you don't practice mindfulness. And practicing this regularly every day, multiple times a day, that is really going to be extremely beneficial on so many levels when it comes to your life. And that's like the first kind of step too. Becoming more spiritual, maybe a little bit. And then if you feel ready, you can step into meditation. Either guided meditation for the beginning, or if you want, you can step into just silent meditation or moving meditation in silence, things like that. There are many options.
I love some good like Tibetan bowls, like sound baths. Love a good sound bath.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of listening to also handpan drums, or like really, there is music that has these deep drums. It's a bit tribal, or also with whale sounds in combination. Yeah, there's just so many different ways that you can meditate, but that's a different episode. So for now, here you have a few advices, few insights regarding generators and burnout. And if you would like to listen to more of this, then we're going to have a few more episodes along those lines regarding the other types. This is it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And we're going to have an episode launching next week about the person that crossed Africa.
I don't remember his actual name, but he goes by the hardest geezer.
Russ, what is his name? Russ Cook. Russ Cook. Yes. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week, looking at his design. Also, a generator as far as we could figure out, but more on that next week. Thank you very much for listening.
Nice cliffhanger.
Good.
All right, guys. Ciao.
Bye.